Hello and welcome to the Calmcast, a time to feel calm and think clearly. I'm Claire Downham, the Queen of Calm, a transformational life coach. I was a burnt out head teacher who finally made the journey to calm after years of trying, and I want to prevent you from having to do the same. The Calmcast is a series of short explorations, gently guiding you back to your natural state, which is calm and clarity. Just listen like you would listen to music, with an open mind and curiosity. There's nothing else to do. Now let's relax into today's episode. So the title of the session today is Balloons, which is a completely random title, I realise. But I just love this metaphor for how life works inside you. I think it's really helpful. So let's just imagine that you have a load of balloons. I feel like they're all sort of lined up on a table, like bell ringers have. So they're all lined up, these balloons. And I'm not going to make you huff and puff them yourself. I know I can't blow up balloons. I don't know. Can you blow them up? I find it really difficult. So you've got the canister of helium, very handy. No inhaling it to make a squeaky voice though. So there you have all these balloons, and you start with balloon number 1, and you push the nozzle in, and you start the helium going into the balloon, and the balloon starts to fill with helium, and if you're holding it sealed around the nozzle of the helium canister, then the balloon will start to rise. But then for some reason you get a bit distracted and you let go of balloon number 1, and it fizzles out and goes flat, becomes flaccid, and you move on to balloon number 2. And of course then the same thing happens. You start filling up balloon number 2, and balloon number 2 starts to rise a little bit. And because you've only got one canister of helium and one nozzle, you can only attend to one of those balloons at once. So you can go up and down the line. Let's say you've got 10 balloons, and each balloon that you bring attention to, you will fill with helium and it will start to rise. And you can't focus on more than one balloon at once because you've only got one canister of helium. You can only actually deal with one balloon at once. And every time you leave the balloon that you're working on and you go to a different balloon, the balloon that you leave will just deflate again. So when we consider thinking and how that is in our lives, it's very much the same. Whatever there is going on in your life, it's only when you bring attention to your thinking about that you experience it, that it comes into your awareness, that you become conscious of it. And the consciousness is like the helium. It's like you standing there with the helium nozzle, filling up the thought balloon with helium and rising it up in your awareness. And when you consider that the truth is that's when you feel your thinking. Like the understanding that I share talks about a connection between thoughts and feelings, which there is. But we have lots of thoughts kind of buzzing around in the background, many of which we don't give any helium to. We don't give them any attention, and they just come and go. It may be that you have a thought about, it's things we forget, isn't it, often? So if we don't write them down. So like a few weeks ago, I was trying to remember to do my tax return. I knew I needed to do it, and it kept popping into my awareness, and I kept going, I'm doing something else now, and just letting that thought disappear. And it really only was when I really brought some attention to it that I actually did my tax return. But of course, a lot of the time, it's not trivial. Well, it's not trivial, your tax return, but it's not things like that. It's things that we are concerned about or worried about. And you've probably noticed this, that you can be in the thick of pumping helium into this thought balloon about something you're worried about, really giving it lots of attention, and it's whirring round and it's thought after thought about the same subject, which is just like pumping more and more helium into that balloon. But then something happens. So I guess something that might happen to quite a lot of people is, your child shouts you and they need you to do something, or you something happens, like the pan starts boiling over, or something distracts you in some way. And then suddenly that thought is just not, it doesn't have the same energy to it, does it? It's gone. It's disappeared. Well, because thoughts are actually supposed to do that. And once you're thinking about something else, you can't really think about two things at the same time. So your awareness is gone, and the experience of that, the feeling that comes with that thought, has disappeared. And that is pretty much what happens to us throughout the day. We are really thinking about something and it's really on our minds, and we're feeling that. We're feeling that because we're giving that particular thought a lot of energy and awareness and consciousness. And then we get distracted and we go do something else for a while. And then the thing that we were worried about doesn't quite seem so much on our minds, but then we may come back to it later. And so there's this, it is pretty much like that person going along the table, pumping air into balloons at different times, and they're rising up and we're feeling them, and then they go down again. Now, what's helpful about this is it's just another aspect to help us understand, and to help you understand how you're actually working. Because the thing is, what we often try to do with a thought that we don't like is we try to manage it. And I don't know if you've tried to manage thinking, but it is virtually impossible, because in bringing our attention to a thought we don't want, which is bringing about a feeling that we don't want, we tend to just pump more energy into that thought. We pump more helium into that balloon, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But that's often what we're guided to do, isn't it? We're often guided, well, if you don't like a thought, well, you've got to think a better thought, a more positive thought, a more optimistic thought. Swap the thought you don't want for the one that you do want. But of course, whenever you are trying to swap a not particularly helpful thought for one that you think will be more helpful, more positive, more optimistic, whatever, you can't help but focus on the one you don't want. So you're still pumping air into the same balloon. You're still filling up the same balloon with that energy of awareness and attention and consciousness. So it's still getting bigger and bigger and noisier and noisier. And then you feel it. That's what we feel. We feel thought in the moment, but we only can feel thought in the moment when the energy of awareness has been brought to it. The thought itself doesn't really have that inherent to it. And that's why some thoughts can come and go without us particularly engaging with them. And sometimes we can catch ourselves starting on this journey of balloon pumping and giving thoughts awareness, but only if we know that's what's happening. I've had a rant about something this morning. I know it's early and I've already had a rant, but I'm human too. I've had a rant about something this morning, and I couldn't see that I was making up a massive, huge story and wrapping it around a text message. Let me tell you, folks, I'm human too. Wrapping a lot of a story because I have a long historical relationship with the person who sent the text message, wrapping a great big story around it, pumping and pumping more air into the balloon, making it more and more energized, and not really realizing I was doing it until I did. Unfortunately, my other half, Bruce, was around to nudge me back in the right direction and remind me that I did not know what what was meant by this text message, or what was happening after my reply to the text message, or any of that. So there's just something here to bring some awareness to that is really, really helpful on a day-to-day basis in terms of understanding why something seems to get so stuck. It's because we're concentrating on it. It's because we're bringing it awareness, because all our consciousness is on it. And from a place of understanding that, you can find something that helps you in that moment. I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's not my job. But once you know how the system works, I have all sorts of funny little things that I do. Sometimes it is talking to Bruce and getting him to metaphorically club me over the head with something. Sometimes it's shaking it off somehow. But when we know that it's that energy that we're bringing to it, that we're feeling, and it doesn't feel nice. It's not coming from the text message. It's coming from us. It's coming from me, in this case this morning. Not from the text message. It's coming from how much we're thinking about that and how much attention we're bringing to it. And that just can be really helpful in the moment. Knowing how the system works is just so transformational. So enjoy playing around with that one. Thank you so much for listening. There's nothing to do now but bring some awareness to how this is working out in your life. Listen regularly to experience longer and longer periods of calm. This has been the Calmcast with Claire Downham, Queen of Calm. Take care and keep listening.